Have you ever canceled plans and felt genuinely relieved? Like a weight just lifted off your shoulders the moment you texted, "Sorry, can't make it." And then you walked back to your couch, wrapped yourself in a blanket, and thought, "This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." If that sounds familiar, you're not antisocial. You're not broken. And you are definitely not alone. There's a whole psychology behind people who love staying home, and it's far more fascinating than most people realize. Let's start with something scientists call stimulation threshold. Every human brain has a limit for how much external input it can handle before it starts feeling overwhelmed. Loud environments, social conversations, unexpected situations, they all require your brain to constantly process, filter, and respond. For some people, that threshold is high. They crave more input, more noise, more social energy. But for others, and this is completely neurological, not a personality flaw, that threshold is lower. Their brain reaches its limit faster. And home? Home is where the input is controlled. It's safe. It's predictable. It's theirs. This connects directly to one of psychology's most studied personality traits, introversion. Now, here's what most people get wrong about introverts. It's not that they hate people, it's that social interaction costs them energy rather than giving it. Psychologist Carl Jung, who first introduced this concept, described it as where you direct your attention, inward or outward. Introverts recharge by turning inward. And the home environment is the perfect space for that. It's the charging station for their mind. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Research in environmental psychology shows that the spaces we inhabit have a direct psychological effect on us. When someone personalizes their home, their books, their lighting, their little corner of comfort, that space becomes an extension of their identity. It's called place attachment. The home isn't just a building, it's a reflection of who they are. And being in it feels like being fully, unapologetically yourself in a way that's almost impossible in the outside world. Think about it. When you're outside, you're always performing to some degree. You're adjusting your tone, your posture, your words. You're reading rooms, managing impressions. Psychologists call this social self-monitoring, and it is exhausting. Home removes the performance. You can exist without editing yourself. And for people who are particularly sensitive to social dynamics, that freedom is not just comfortable, it's essential. Now, there's also something called the high sensitivity trait, studied extensively by psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron. Highly sensitive people, and roughly 15 to 20% of the population falls into this category, process emotional and sensory information more deeply than others. They notice more. They feel more. And because of that, the world outside can feel genuinely overwhelming. The noise, the pace, the emotional weight of other people's energy. Home becomes a sanctuary, not because they're afraid of the world, but because they experience it so intensely. And let's talk about creativity for a second. Some of the most imaginative, intellectually alive people on the planet are deeply home-oriented. Because creativity requires something the outside world rarely gives you, uninterrupted mental space. When you're home, your mind can wander. You can follow a thought all the way down the rabbit hole without someone interrupting you. Psychologists call this the default mode network, the part of your brain that activates when you're not focused on the outside world. It's responsible for imagination, self-reflection, and problem-solving. Home lovers tend to live in this network, and it's where their best thinking happens. Of course, there's a balance to everything. There's a difference between someone who genuinely thrives in solitude and someone who uses home as a way to avoid anxiety they haven't yet addressed. Psychology distinguishes between voluntary solitude, which is healthy, restorative, and intentional, and avoidance-driven isolation, which is rooted in fear. If being home brings you peace, that's beautiful. If it's the only place you feel safe from a world that terrifies you, that's worth gently exploring. But for most people who love staying home, they're not running away from life. They're living it, just inward. They're thinkers, feelers, creators. They value depth over breadth, meaning over noise, presence over performance. So the next time someone calls you a homebody like it's an insult, smile. Because what they're really saying is that you've figured out something a lot of people spend their whole lives searching for. You know where you feel most alive. And for you, that place just happens to have a really comfortable couch.